Christina Catherine MacDonald was born on 10th February 1940 at Raigmore Hospital in Inverness, Scotland. She was known to everyone who knew her as Renee. She grew up on a council estate in a small village west of Inverness and was remembered by those who knew her in those years as top of her class at school. Bright, warm, and full of life. Inverness is the capital of the Scottish Highlands, a city on the banks of the River Ness, surrounded by moorland and mountains, at the gateway to some of the most remote and beautiful landscape in Britain. In 1940, it was a small, close-knit city where families knew their neighbours and where a girl growing up on a council estate in a nearby village would have her whole world shaped by the community around her. The Highlands in those years were defined by their landscape, their history, and their tight communities. It was into this world that Renee Macdonald was born and raised. As a young woman, Renee moved into Inverness and found work as a shop assistant at Boots. It was there that she met a man named Gordon MacRae. They married on 17th May 1963. Renee was 23 years old. Their first son, also named Gordon, was born in 1968. Their second son, Andrew, followed in 1973. The family lived in Inverness. To those on the outside, they were an ordinary Highland family, building an ordinary life. But by the early 1970s, something had changed. Around 1971, without her husband's knowledge, Renee had begun a secret relationship with a man named William McDowell, known to everyone as Bill. McDowell was married with 2 children of his own. He worked for Gordon MacRae's building company, Hugh MacRae and Company, as the firm's accountant and company secretary. He was, in the most literal sense, a man Gordon MacRae trusted with the running of his business. The affair was kept entirely secret. Nobody knew about it except Renee's closest friend, a woman named Valerie Steventon. In the spring of 1973, Renee told Valerie she was pregnant. The child was not Gordon MacRae's. The father was Bill McDowell. Valerie later recalled that Renee was completely besotted by Bill. McDowell had been making promises. He told Renee he had secured a job with Texaco in Shetland and had already found a house where they could begin a new life together. Renee believed him. Those details, Valerie said, turned out to be a pack of lies. Andrew MacRae was born in 1973. His father was William McDowell. Gordon MacRae did not know this. The secret was kept. In July 1976, Renee and Gordon MacRae formally separated. Renee moved with her 2 sons, 9-year-old Gordon Jr. and 3-year-old Andrew, to a house at 4 Cradle Hall Park on the outskirts of Inverness. The couple were headed for divorce, but had remained on relatively good terms. Both had moved on. The identity of Renee's new partner was kept entirely secret, and it was soon clear why. On Friday, 12th of November 1976, Renee left her home at Cradle Hall Park at around 5 o'clock in the evening. She had loaded an overnight bag and Andrew's pushchair into her blue BMW. She had both sons with her. She drove to Gordon MacRae's house and dropped off 9-year-old Gordon Jr. She told Gordon she was heading to Kilmarnock to visit her sister Morag for the weekend. That was not where she was going. Renee was travelling south on the A9 to meet Bill McDowell in Perthshire. Andrew was in the back seat. At around 8 o'clock that evening, her blue BMW was seen parked in a lay-by approximately 10 miles south of Inverness, near a hotel on the road south. A witness also reported a pale-coloured Volvo, later linked through company records to McDowell, parked alongside her car in a nearby lay-by. At around 10 o'clock that night, a train driver traveling the line that runs alongside the A9 spotted something in the darkness. 12 miles south of Inverness, in an isolated lay-by, Renee's blue BMW was on fire. When police reached the vehicle, it was charred and empty. On the back seat was a rug stained with blood, later confirmed by DNA analysis to be Renee's blood. There was no sign of Renee. There was no sign of Andrew. There was no sign of the pushchair. There was nothing. Witnesses who had been on the A9 that night came forward in the days that followed. One reported seeing a man on the road dragging something he believed to be a dead sheep near the burning car. Renee had been wearing a sheepskin coat when she left home that evening. Another witness reported seeing a man with a pushchair near a quarry close to the lay-by. Renee MacRae and her 3-year-old son Andrew were never seen again. Their bodies have never been found. One of the most intensive searches ever mounted in the Scottish Highlands was launched in the days and weeks that followed. Officers searched the moorland surrounding the A9. A special squad was formed, pairing Inverness officers with members of the Scottish Crime Squad. Dalmagarry Quarry, close to where the car had been found, became a focus of the search. Detective Sergeant John Cathcart coordinated those efforts. At one point, while excavating the quarry, Cathcart removed a layer of topsoil and was hit by a powerful stench. Convinced he had found the bodies, he continued digging until a superior officer ordered him to stop because the bulldozer had to be returned to its contractors due to a lack of funds. The quarry was never fully excavated at that time. As the investigation developed, it became apparent that Renee's personal life was considerably more complicated than it had appeared. The secret affair with McDowell was uncovered. The paternity of Andrew was established. When Gordon MacRae discovered that his trusted accountant had been conducting a secret relationship with his wife for years and was the father of Andrew, he sacked McDowell on the spot, 3 days after the disappearance. McDowell's behaviour in the days after Renee and Andrew vanished was noted carefully by those around him. He was seen scrubbing the boot of his car in the days following the disappearance. 2 days after they vanished, he removed and burned the boot floor of his Volvo. 1 week after the disappearance, McDowell walked into Inverness Police Headquarters and asked to make a voluntary statement. His wife Rosemary dragged him out of the building before he could say anything. Nothing was ever said again. 8 days after the disappearance, McDowell was interviewed by journalist Stuart Lindsay. He claimed that Renee had contacted him twice since she went missing using a coded phone system they had between them. 2 rings and a hang-up. He said this meant she was still alive. When asked why he had not passed this information to police, McDowell replied that it had slipped his mind. The senior officers leading the investigation were candid about the difficulties they faced. The revelation of Renee's 4-year affair with McDowell, the lies that had been told, and the complicated web of relationships at the centre of the case led them to describe it as mired in a sea of deceit and untruthfulness from its start. Then, in 2005, a letter arrived at Northern Constabulary from a convicted criminal named Dennis Tyrone. Tyrone wrote that in the summer of 1976, months before Renee and Andrew disappeared, a man he identified as William McDowell had approached him and asked him a question. The man knew Tyrone had been in prison. He asked if Tyrone was able to kill someone by dousing them in acid. He offered £500 up front, with more to follow once the job was done. Tyrone said he refused point blank. He had kept quiet about the approach for nearly 30 years before writing the letter. Tyrone died before the trial. His statement was read in court. In October 2006, Northern Constabulary named MacDowell as a suspect in a formal report to the Crown Office and Procurator Fiscal Service. The Crown Office examined the evidence and declared there was insufficient evidence to bring charges. MacDowell would not be prosecuted. He broke his long silence in a 2004 interview and told journalists he did not kill Renee. He would not elaborate. He would not discuss the case further. He moved away from Inverness and settled in Penrith in Cumbria. The searches for Renee and Andrew continued over the following years. In 2004, a month-long excavation of Dalmagary Quarry was undertaken following a cold case review prompted by a television documentary. 35,000 tons of earth were removed, and 2,000 trees cleared at a cost of over £100,000. Nothing was found. In 2018, Dalmagary Quarry was searched again. The following year, a quarry near Culloden Battlefield became the new focus. Police Scotland drained it entirely. Over 100,000 tons of material were removed, with 5,000 tons subjected to a thorough forensic search over 5 months. Nothing conclusive was found. By 2017, Police Scotland's major investigations team had commenced a full review of everything gathered since 1976. In 2018, a formal reinvestigation began. Every witness statement was reviewed. Every line of inquiry was revisited. Where possible, people who had given information decades earlier were re-interviewed. In September 2019, William McDowell was arrested at his home in Penrith. He was charged with the murders of Renee and Andrew MacRae and with attempting to defeat the ends of justice. He was 80 years old. His trial began at the High Court in Inverness in September 2022. The jury consisted of 8 women and 7 men. McDowell denied all charges. He lodged special defences of alibi and incrimination. His defence counsel argued that what had happened to Renee and Andrew was a mystery, not a murder, that no bodies had ever been found, that no conclusive physical evidence of murder had been produced, and that the jury should not convict a man on the basis of suspicion alone. The jury heard from dozens of witnesses. They heard that a pale Volvo matching McDowell's company car had been seen alongside Renee's BMW in a lay-by on the A9 on the night she disappeared. They heard that McDowell had scrubbed the boot of his car in the days after the disappearance and had removed and burned its floor 2 days later. They heard that a witness at a farm near the lay-by had heard a blood-curdling scream on the night of 12 November 1976. They heard the statement of Dennis Tyranny, read from beyond the grave, describing the offer of £500 to kill a woman and her child with acid. They heard from Valerie Steventon, Renee's best friend, who described how besotted Renee had been with McDowell, and confirmed she had been travelling to meet him on the night she died. DNA analysis of the blood in the car confirmed it was Renee's. Paternity testing confirmed McDowell was Andrew's father. On 29 September 2022, the jury returned a unanimous guilty verdict on all charges. McDowell showed no emotion as the verdict was delivered. Lord Armstrong sentenced McDowell to life imprisonment with a minimum term of 30 years. In passing sentence, Lord Armstrong stated that the murders appeared to have been premeditated, planned, and carried out in the most calculating way. He said it was not a spontaneous event that happened on the spur of the moment. He described the killings as, in effect, executions, adding that McDowell had murdered his victims and then disposed of their bodies and personal effects, including the boy's pushchair and taken various steps to conceal what he had done. On 15th February 2023, William David McDowell died in prison. He was 81 years old. He had served less than 6 months of his sentence. He died without admitting what he had done. He died without revealing where Renee and Andrew are. On behalf of the family, Renee's sister, Morag Govans, spoke after the conviction. She said, "Almost 46 years on, the pain of losing Renee and Andrew in such a cruel and brutal fashion never fades." She said, "Andrew would be 48 today. He was never given the chance to build his own life." She said, "The passage of time has not eased the anguish we feel. We've never been able to lay Renee and Andrew to rest or properly mourn their loss. Not knowing where their remains lie only compounds the pain. Thinking of the terror they both must have felt before they died continues to haunt us." She said, "We will never comprehend why their lives had to be taken in such a calculated and callous manner by William McDowell. If he has a shred of decency in his body, he will now reveal where they both lie. He never did." Renee MacRae was 36 years old. She had grown up on a council estate in the Highlands, been top of her class, worked in a chemist's shop in Inverness, married, had 2 sons, and was trying to find a way through the wreckage of a marriage that had broken down and a secret that had consumed too many years of her life. She left her home on the evening of 12th November 1976 with her 3-year-old son in the back seat and was never seen again. Andrew MacRae was 3 years old. Their bodies have never been found. Police Scotland has stated the case will never be considered resolved until Renee and Andrew are located. As recently as 2025, detectives have continued to examine areas along the A9 corridor where their remains may lie. Renee and Andrew MacRae are still out there. Somewhere in the Scottish Highlands, they are waiting to be brought home. Hello everyone, thank you for listening and drop any feedback below. I would love to hear your thoughts and hope to see you again right here on Cold Case UK.